Self-love is the new sexy, the podcast devoted to helping you overcome life's most painful and stubborn challenges so you can feel great, have more energy, and live stress-free every day. To reach your full potential, simply work with the powerful spiritual principles that are readily accessible to everyone. It's easier than you think, and on today's show, W. Mark Watts is going to show you how starting with self-love is the key to joyously and harmoniously making that happen.
Hey everybody, it's W. Mark Watts. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me for another episode of Self-Love is the New Sexy. And as always, we like to get right into it. So tonight's topic is what are some signs? Like, how do you know when you look at your life if self-love is the culprit? Like if you need more self-love in your life, or if this is something that you might benefit from. How do you know that? So I'm not sure I discussed that maybe specifically in the previous episode. So tonight's episode, I'm just going to give a handful of just a few of the reasons that I recognize in my life. And once I started doing my studies, I realized that these were some areas that I really needed to improve on or change in my life, and that self-love was the bridge. It was the path for me that helped me overcome some of these things. So we'll get right into it. So the first thing is when you look at your life and if you're consistently unhappy, so if you're struggling, you're just not excited about where you've been, excited about where you are right now, excited about your prospects in the future, and you just have that overall sense of unhappiness, lack of energy, just can't seem to get excited about things. And if there's an overwhelming lack of confidence, then that is a telltale sign that self-love is required. You definitely got to look at yourself, your life, and find ways to correct that. Because I know very clearly back in the late 90s, when I was in a place professionally in a job, in a sales position, technical sales position with an electronics company, and I was totally miserable. I had been married just a few years, and I was just at a place where I was like, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do long term with my life, but I didn't know what else I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to start to plan a family. And, of course, which requires money and all kinds of other things. But I just really was somewhat lost. I really did feel lost. And I was somewhat miserable. And I was just remember thinking to myself, man, what am I going to do? There has to be more to life than what I'm doing. So like, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? And, believe it or not, that is around the time that I really started. That's the first time I bought a self-help book, and I think it was The Power of Dreaming Big or Dream Big, something like that. And I'm pretty sure I still have that book to this day. But I knew there was something different. I knew I was off a little bit, but I had no idea what was off, and I had no idea how to change it. And so it just took me studying and digging and talking and listening and watching hours. And I can't even explain to you the amount of time that I've spent studying new things that I'd never studied before, learning new things, listening and reading books from people I didn't know about, just watching videos. It is just so much time that I've spent, and I still do to this day, and I still will until my dying day, because it's just something that's important to me. So if you feel that you're in that place, you're stuck, unhappy, can't get excited, you're just overwhelmed with no lack of confidence, then self-love is definitely something that I would highly suggest that you start to look into and start to exercise more in your life.
We hope you're enjoying today's show. If so, please take a moment to show your support for the show by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. If you have questions for W. Mark Watts, please feel free to contact him over at wmarkwatts.com, on Instagram at WMarkWatts, or on Facebook at Self-Love is the New Sexy.
All right, number 2, the second thing that I would say, if you are receiving or you're recognizing recurring patterns in your life. For example, you're constantly dating the wrong guy or wrong girl and the same type of person. The same, there's drama or trifling. They can't seem to get themselves together, or they're, seem to be habitual liars, or just seem to never really be serious. Or, you think they're your type, and then, 3 weeks later, you realize that they're really not your type. If you've got that type of recurring issue, if you're constantly losing jobs, and it's not performance related, for example, there was a period of time back in the late 90s, that job in particular that I told you about that I didn't like. I can remember silently asking to no longer have that job. Well, guess what happened? I lost that job. I was laid off. They started cutting back in the office because sales for the overall office weren't well. And, the market wasn't there for that business anyway. But needless to say, they had one round of layoffs. I was let go in that first round of layoffs. And then ultimately they had another round of layoffs. And I would say within the first year, that next year and a half, the office closed altogether. But that was a sign for me that, I'm just not in the right place. There's something else for me. And, and that's why I tell people a lot of times now is if you lose a job, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, it's always an issue because if that's your main source of income, you have to figure out how to replace that income or make more money because you have to support yourself and your family potentially. But the fact that you lost that particular job is not always a bad thing. There can oftentimes be other ramifications that could oftentimes be a sign that you need to think about something different, do something different, look in a different direction. Start to read books, start to research what that might mean in your life. So if that's a pattern, and if financial struggle is a pattern, and I definitely raise my hand loud and fast on that one because I've had a definite roller coaster experience. Number one, never having anyone explain finances to me and try and teach me about finances. But I've been successful, made good money, spent it all, lost money. You name it, blown it on automobiles, clothes, however you can blow money. I've done it, and then then I'm without, and then I go through a period where I get another good job, I make good money, and then I spend it, or I do whatever with it. Just was not very wise with money. It took me a long time to really get to the place where I started to love myself financially, where I started to realize that I have to do something different. And it starts with, creating a budget. It starts with what I'm spending my money on, how I'm spending it. And then, again, investing in it. And like I talked about in a previous episode, how am I spending my money? What am I investing in? Am I making good investments, not only in markets, but in myself? So if you're seeing a pattern of these types of struggles and issues in your life, then that's definitely a place where you need to apply more self-love in your life. And then lastly, if you're at a place where, and I kind of spoke about it a little bit a minute ago, if you're just really uncertain about your life, if you just really don't have a lot of guidance, if, 1 minute you feel this way about something, and the next minute, as soon as the wind blows, you're changing your mind and you're feeling this way about that same thing. You're going in a different direction. You want to move to Florida, and then you want to move to, you want to move to New York, and then you want to move to Texas. So if you're constantly just unsure about the direction of your life and kind of what you want to do and how you even feel about things, do you want to be in a relationship? You don't want to be in a relationship? Are you happy with your kids this moment, unhappy with the kids next moment? All those things are really signs at the end of the day that you are not loving yourself the way that you should. Because when you are loving yourself and your cup is full, then you are on center. You are balanced. You are in harmony with the beauty and the essence of what life is, which is joy and happiness and peace and love and just being in tune with the universe. That is what self-love brings you. So anytime you're out of sorts, anytime you're consistently upset, anytime you're unsure or you're afraid or you don't know what to do, that's the telltale sign that you've got to really focus and really start to listen to yourself so that you can exercise more self-love in your life. And that brings me to my last little caveat here is it's really getting quiet. In a previous episode, I talked to you about meditation and making that's a part of my life and will be forever from this point going forward. You've got to, so one way that you start to slow yourself down so that you can start to love yourself more and better is you've got to get quiet. You've got to take the time, whether it's 5 minutes, to just listen to your thoughts. Start to pay attention to the thoughts that you're having. Pay attention to the things that you're doing on a daily basis. Pay attention to the people you spend time with. Pay attention to your environment. Where do you like to hang out? Pay attention to the things that are really important to you that are you're spending your time on. And that's the start. And once you are aware, awareness is the beginning. Once you are aware of what you're doing, then you can start to make the conscious efforts to do things differently, to do things that will help you go forward in the way in which you want to go. It just gives you taking that time out gives you the ability to start gaining the clarity that you need and the clarity that you desire, because obviously you don't necessarily have that at the time. So that quiet time when you can listen to that still voice within, that very pleasant, nice voice inside where spirit's talking to you, universe is talking to you, that's where you need to do. And you start there and then you can build from that point going forward. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope that in some way is helpful. If it is, listen to it more than once. Like I told you, I listen to things 2 and 3 and 4 and more times until things really start to sink in, which is a matter of fact, I've got a book tonight that I'm listening to again for, I think, maybe the 6th time. So until the next episode, continue to take care of yourself, love on yourself as much as you can, and your whole world will start to get better. Take care, everybody. I look forward to talking with you again real soon. Bye now.
You've been listening to Self-Love is the New Sexy with W. Mark Watts. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.